we live in a story that we are navigating whether we know it or not. And it's in the context of that story that we come to develop an understanding not just of what we know, but how we know things. And one of the first things that's important to know is that nobody ever comes to know things in a vacuum, right? We've learned this in the last 100 years, and postmodernity has taught us that like everybody has an influence that's informing what it is that they're talking about at any given time. And so it would be important to know that anytime you were listening to anybody talk here, that they're going to be talking to you from a particular perspective, and that perspective may or may not actually be grounded in what's actually true. But it's important, I think, for everybody to at least know that I'm acknowledging to you what that perspective is. So I'm going to let you know my plausibility structure is one that believes in a particular story. And one of the questions that we ask patients all the time, and when it gets to the question of mental health, one of the most important questions that's for people to answer is this. In what story do you believe you're living? In what story do you believe you're living? Now here's the thing. Everybody is believing we live in some story. It's just that most of us aren't paying any attention to that. Most of us are living on autopilot, not asking questions of depth that if we were to, would reveal some things about us that we didn't know we didn't know. And so the first question is, in what story do we believe we're living? Here's the story that I think that we're living in. I would say that I have come to believe, given the community in which I was raised and grew up in and how my life has been formed, I have come to believe that we live in a world that was formed by a God who is wildly crazy in love with his humanity. That's what I think. And that has implications. It's not just about like how we got here. Like, it's not just about the mechanics of how we were made and how long it took for the earth to get here and how long it took for us to get here, how we got here, but it's just that we are here. And then the question is, what do we do with that? And in the context of my story, we would also say, the story that I think that we live in, this Christian story, that we live in a world that feels pretty broken. So at one level, we would say, like, gosh, I don't know if there's anybody here who would say that they don't yearn for a world of goodness and beauty. No matter what our story is. I don't know many people that wake up and say, like, gosh, I hope by the end of the day, my life sucks more than it does now. I don't know, but if those people, they're coming to see me, right? Those people are coming to see me, right? Because that's just weird. But we long for a world of goodness and beauty, and at the same time, like, I'm like deeply aware that we don't have that. Would that be fair to say? We look around, like there's just lots of stuff about the world that would seem to indicate that the world of goodness and beauty that we really want is not right immediately at our fingertips. There's lots of things about the world that we live in that's just really difficult for us to manage and discover, and certainly like make happen. And so those of us who are believers also believe that at a particular time in history, a particular person emerged on the earth. His name was Jesus. And we do believe in an event, his death, his resurrection, that changed everything. It was a pivotal point in history. No matter how long this earth is around, like that's a pivotal point in history. And we also believe that in the resurrection of Jesus, that God is in the business of renewing everything. And that we who are willing to consider that God is this crazy in love with us begin to see everything and everyone as people and things to be loved. Until the new heaven and new earth shows up. Now that's like Christian theology in like 3 minutes. Now that doesn't, and I'm just saying, that's what I believe. And so as I now talk about what I do and what I think about human flourishing, what I think about mental health and all these kinds of things, just so you know, like that's coming out of that context. Someone else would talk about these things and come out of a different context, but they'd have to let you know what that context is.